Continuing with the driver's ed metaphor, this is going to be more like having to learn to drive a stick shift in rush hour, in the rain. But, much like how you'd learn to drive a stick shift, you have to learn to work through the gears. In the concept of self and community defense, the first gear is having to figure out what is the incident. Any incident or encounter in the sense of defense has three basic components. What happens before the violence, the actual violence itself, and the aftermath. And all three of these points need to be considered. As we work through these videos and as I work through the book, all of these will be covered. Shifting to second gear, when it comes to self and community defense, one needs to be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Self-defense, you need to know a little bit about a lot of things. You need to learn how to de-escalate a situation. You need to know the legal parameters of self-defense and how these can shift. You need to know what levels of force are appropriate and what to do if you cannot meet those levels of force or exceed them. And finally, the knowledge of how to deal with the ever-developing situation of an encounter. The third gear relates to the situations, which is the need to avoid sound bites and cliches. The old thing that all you have to do is say, I felt my life was in danger. A good attorney or even a good police officer will ask the question, how and why? If you can't answer that, you're SOL. These sound bites and cliches come from the fact that self-defense is not so much a complicated situation, but a complex situation. A complicated situation is one like a watch or a car. All the parts have to work together in the proper order. The engine goes to the transmission, goes to the drivetrain, goes to the wheels. Something that's complex is a little more nonlinear or non-deterministic. A computer program, a game, a fight in the octagon. Sound bites and cliches also result from the sheer complexities of defense. One needs to consider the location of you and your adversary. How many attackers are there? Do you have allies? And a general awareness of the situation. And a lot of this is going to be after the fact. Also, when things don't affect us, people tend to resort to sound bites. Now, sound bites aren't necessarily bad. They can be a good starting point or a good rule of thumb. But they can also be self-fulfilling and, as has already been stated, are not always enough. The fourth gear is, in absence of sound bites and cliches, the best answer is usually, it depends. Every situation is different and things might need to be situationally specific. As Randy King said, violence is high-speed problem solving. So you have to think fast. And thinking brings us to the fifth gear of the tree, which is putting knowledge, assessment, and articulation over physical skills. Prior knowledge is needed, and that's where this comes in. Another thing is you will need to justify your violence. Someone is always going to be unhappy with a decision to use force. It might be the police officer, it might be the other party, especially your victim, or it may be a witness to the encounter. Now, a few quick takeaways. The first thing is there is a difference between training and reality. As Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Another thing with a lot of self-defense is that it does not teach. It simply ingrains attributes. There's not a lot of emphasis on thought, but more of an emphasis on building body knowledge. A lot of martial arts training is also consumer driven. It's not designed to prevent and prepare for violence. Another way a lot of this can be articulated are the 5 fronts that Martin Cooper mentions, which are acting, stopping the attacker, being cleared of criminal charges, being able to win in civil court if it comes to that, and being able to handle the emotional aftermath of the encounter. We'll get to the emotional aftermath later, but the next chapter will be a place that can be as foreboding as any alley or bar: the courtroom.